All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. In this video, we got the big fight coming up this weekend between Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford. And as usual, there's a lot of predictions being made about the fight by celebrities, by world-class boxers, trainers, managers, just, hacks like me. Everybody's giving their opinion about what they think is going to happen in this fight. My favorite guy to listen to when they're giving predictions for fights is Gary Russell Jr., one of my favorite fighters, and I think one of the best fighters in the world. He warns Canelo that he can take an L if this happens. Now, before we get into it, also got some information at the end of the video, a couple pieces of news at the end of the video. So please make sure that you watch all the way to the end. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. Look, I'm going to tell you right now that there's a lot of people that think this fight between Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez is a gimmick fight, and that the outcome of this fight is already determined. There are a lot of people that are not believers in Terence Crawford and think that, look, this weight class and all of this is going to be too much for him. And so when Gary Russell Jr. started talking, my ears pricked up because he is a smaller fighter that is continually fighting bigger guys. And I really wanted to know and understand what Gary Russell Jr. thought about it. So when he gave the interview, I was very happy. And he said essentially the following, that more than likely Canelo Alvarez is going to win the fight because of a couple reasons. One is the fact that he's just a naturally bigger guy. And he said that Terence Crawford still makes a lot of defensive mistakes, and that Terence Crawford, still gets hit too much for Gary Russell Jr.'s liking. However, that Terence Crawford can win the fight if Terence Crawford is in 15-round shape and he is willing and he is ready to go and he can stay at his energy levels can stay at a very high level. Then he has a shot to beat Canelo Alvarez. This was very, very similar prediction to what he said about Errol Spence Jr. And when Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford were fighting, he pretty much said the same thing. Because I think he said he was leaning towards Errol Spence Jr. in the fight, but that if Terence Crawford could stay in 15-round shape and really press it and avoid getting hit, that he would win the fight. Now, obviously, the Errol Spence Jr. fight was a one-sided fight. I maintain that was not a real, that was a fight, but it wasn't the real Errol Spence. Errol Spence was clearly depleted in that fight, and that is no shade on Errol Spence Jr. at all. The man was just depleted. You had multiple major car accidents, huge amounts of time off. No way in the world was that dude all the way there. I don't care what he did with Yordenis Ugas, because Yordenis Ugas was a much lower level fighter than Terence Crawford is. So when you don't have Terence, Errol could probably have something wrong with him in Yordenis Ugas fight and still pull that fight out. Yordenis Ugas was no Terence Crawford. So there is that precedent of Gary Russell Jr. being wrong about Terence Crawford in the predictions that he made. However, again, Canelo Alvarez is not as nearly as depleted a fighter at this point in his career as Errol Spence Jr. was, Errol Spence Jr. was compromised with Terence Crawford, as compromised as Errol Spence was with Terence Crawford. That's just not the scenario with Canelo Alvarez. So I have definitely a lot more solid. I think that Gary Russell Jr. is much more solid in this prediction. And he's far from the only person that is basically saying the same thing. Many people are basically, the predictions for this fight are going almost right down the color line, where you have a bunch of most Mexicans picking Canelo, and you got most of the people that are picking Terence Crawford are black fight fans that are still lingering on from what they saw in the Errol Spence Jr. fight with Terence Crawford. At the end of the day, though, look, man, I'm just going to see how it plays out. I'm going to see what takes place before I say what I really think in the fight. Now, anybody with common sense is going to lead towards Canelo Alvarez, but likewise, anybody with common sense is going to say if anybody has the ability to move up and do this, it's going to be Terence Crawford. So, it's just something that where there's interest from personal interest in the fight being generated. Just because of the event and just to see what Terence Crawford can do. I'm really, really rooting for Terence Crawford in the fight. I want him to win the fight, even though I'm not a particularly, huge fan of his, I'm not a particularly huge fan of his out of the ring antics and the way that he does business, but what he does in the ring, I love it a lot, man. However, at the same time, we have to wonder, and I think that this is fair, if there's a little bit of gimmickry, is that the word? Gimmickry, in Terence Crawford's career. He has done a lot of matchmaking. He has picked people at the right time to fight. He's been stubborn in the right moments, gotten a lot of, he's got fought a lot of guys, man, where they're not anywhere near the level of Canelo Alvarez. And when they did fight him, and some of the guys that he did fight, he fought them at odd times, bad times, like Sean Porter, Kell Brook, Amir Khan, Errol Spence. And then he moves up to fight Israel Madmirov. The Israel Madmirov fight, I think Terence Crawford won the fight, but he won the fight, I think, by pressing in the last part of the fight. I don't think he's going to be able to do that with Canelo if he's going to press in the end of the fight. But at the same time, Israel Madmirov doesn't fight like Canelo Alvarez. All in all, it just makes for a very, very interesting deal. But again, don't be surprised, man, if Terence Crawford gets slumped, right? Like, really don't be surprised if he jumps on that bike and gets up out of there. Because no joke, man, we thought the same thing, people were saying the same story before the Jermell Charlo Canelo Alvarez fight. Jermell was the naturally bigger guy. He's taller. Look at him stand together. He looked bigger, but when they got in that ring, it just was not that way. The much bigger, much more explosive guy was Canelo Alvarez. And when you see some of the pictures of Terence Crawford in between the fight, so like several months ago, where he's kind of looked like he was pudgy, a little bit pudgy. Now that pudgy picture, people were acting like it happened this week. It didn't happen this week, but there was a pudgy picture out there where it kind of looked like he even had love handles, right? To get up to walking at 181. Nah, I don't buy that, man. I just don't think he's naturally that weight. Now, as far as the other news, man, I wanted to tell you something, man, that happened in this fight and why you guys should be very concerned about this stuff with Turki Al-Sheikh. It is rumored that there is a fighter that was on that card that tested positive for booger sugar, that yayo. They tested positive for that in the lead up to the fight, and they just waived it and let the guy continue to fight. This is akin to what happens in Great Britain when guys like Dillian White pop dirty for something, and then they go in behind secret door, closed door meetings and agree that it's not a big issue and just let it go. That's what the Nevada State Athletic Commission must have done to whoever it was that popped dirty on this card to allow him to fight. Now, that's just, what else are they going to allow you to? What else are they going to allow you to do? As long as it doesn't hit the press and people don't find out about it. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. I just think that is shameful. Please let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.